Hey, it's your boy Control, and this is a video on my top 5 wild ladder decks for Un'Goro. These are 5 decks that are not only fun, but extremely competitive on the current wild Un'Goro ladder. These 5 decks aren't necessarily the top 5 decks in the entire meta, but they're 5 decks that I have tested extensively and can say are extremely strong and legend viable. So first up is Aggro Shaman. This is Lemon's variant. He's a European player who reached rank 1 legend with this before Un'Goro came out. Slightly modified his deck since the release, took out 200 creepers which were originally there for the Pirate Warrior matchup, and added Galactic Crawlers. Because it turns out, a 2-mana 3-4 is a little bit better than a 2-mana 1-2 against Pirates. Also, it always eats the 3-4 upgrade girl, right? So it's a pretty nice card. This deck's just solid for ladder because it's an extremely fast list, and it also does very well against 2 popular ladder decks at the moment, Pirate Warrior again, and Egg Druid. So this is a good deck that you should be playing if you really see yourself in a heavy aggro meta. Next up is my variant of Egg Druid. This is what I would say is probably my favorite deck in all of Hearthstone at the moment. The changes Un'Goro has made to the deck is it allows us to play 2 Fireflies instead of Argent Squire. Basically, Firefly just allows us to fill out the curve a little bit, and it synergizes a little bit better with the buffs in the deck. So I think it's a great inclusion to the deck and is an auto-include. Next up is Galactic Crawler. Galactic Crawler is a card that's great in a heavy Pirate Warrior meta. If you're not queuing into too many Pirate Warriors, it's generally better to just throw the 100 Creepers back in your deck. So I'd say be pretty aware of what you're queuing into throughout the day, and toss the Creepers back in if Galactic Crawler is underperforming. This is a deck that's still extremely good for laddering. Again, as long as you don't queue into Shamans with Evolve, it's great. Specifically Mid Shamans, Control Shaman's not that bad of a matchup. It's still unfavored, but it's not as bad as Mid Shaman. Justage Mid Shamans, this deck is great. A lot of my viewers have actually gone ahead and hit Legend with this deck relatively easily. A lot of people like to watch me play it. I put in roughly 2,000 to 2,500 games since the beginning of January with a list very similar to this, give or take 4 or 5 cards. Another interesting card that you could include is Living Mana. So it's a 5 mana card that trades all of your mana crystals for 2/2s. The reason I like this card is because I figure if you have to use it, you're probably going to lose anyways, and it's not going to help too much. But what you can do if you'd like to try it out is cut Soul the Forest for it. Personally, again, I'm not a huge fan of it, but teach their own, man, teach their own. I haven't tested it extensively, but from what little testing I have done, I have found Soul for the Forest to be more effective. Next up is Sippy WI94's N'Zoth Shaman list. So this is a very wild deck, as you can tell. It's got a very nice top end with Sneasel, Shredded, Kel'Thuzad, and Sylvanas. 3 beautiful wild cards. These are some fun cards that you can actually use in an extremely competitive deck. Personally, I use this to climb the Legend this season, alongside a Freeze Mage list. This list Sippy actually took 22 wins relatively early on the season to rank 1 Legend in Europe with. Very, very beautiful climb. And actually, I just dethroned him a couple days ago. He's got it back now, though. The new inclusions from Un'Goro are Volcano to this deck list. So what Sippy decided to do was take out Elemental Destruction and Lava Shock and actually toss in 2 Volcanoes. I actually think this change is amazing. It's perfect. It's just, oh, it's phenomenal. Volcano is a wonderful card in this deck. You don't get punished too often for not having ED. Like, on my road to Legend, I think there were 2 situations in total over, like, 100-120 games where I found that Elemental Destruction would actually be better than Volcano. So, take that with a grain of salt, though. I mean, 120 games isn't a huge sample size. But, I've had a lot of success with this deck. Sippy obviously has had a lot of success with this deck as well, taking 22-0 to rank 1 Legend in Europe. So if you're somebody who likes decks with huge top ends, I would definitely recommend giving this deck a spin. Unfortunately, as you can see, it's relatively expensive with a huge top end, but if you have the dust to spare and you're interested in playing control decks, this is probably the one that I would recommend. He's also got a bit of a write-up on the deck, so I'll link that below in the description. Next up is Reno Lock. So if you're somebody who's been missing Reno Jackson a little bit in Standard and you're looking to get your Reno fix, this is definitely the list that I would recommend using. I've peaked at rank 5 Legend with this myself this season, before finishing the grind off with Pirate Warrior to hit 1 this season. Not much has changed with Reno Lock from Un'Goro. The only new additions I made to the deck is taking out Loatheb for Blood Bloom, which is a surprisingly good card. Turns out being able to Shadow Flame a 2-drop on turn 2, for example, or being able to, use Siphon Soul on turn 3, Twisting Nether on turn 4, using a 10 mana Kazakus Potion whenever you want, is actually just wonderful. It's super, super nice and makes the decks extremely flexible. So I'm a huge fan of that card. And the other change that I made is not so huge. All I did was change a second rate bruiser for a Tar Creeper. I just found that second rate bruiser wasn't activated enough and people could play around it if they thought that I would have it on turn 3. So I figured, hey, let's play a Sen'jin on my opponent's turn for 3 mana. There's no way that they can play around that, right? But yeah, it turns out these changes so far have done work for me so far. Haven't had too many issues on ladder with this deck, and it's done surprisingly well against the field. And lastly, probably the most hated deck in the Wild meta, Pirate Warrior. So this is my version of the list. I hit rank 1 legend in North America and Europe at the same time with it. Basically, my spin on it is I prefer Deathbite because you get your big boy 4/2 weapon a turn before Arcanite Reaper. I still do like to use 1 Arcanite Reaper, and I prefer to use no Mortal Strikes. I find that playing heavily for board ends up allowing you to win pretty easily when you play around aura buffs like South Sea Captain and cards that have a lot of synergy between each other, like Ship's Cannon and a 1 or 2 drop pirate that spawns patches or summons patches from your deck, dealing 4 damage randomly. While in some matchups you do just go face, this deck actually does require a little bit more thinking than you would think to unlock its true potential. Again, this is by far the strongest Un'Goro deck. If you want to be able to defeat all of the greedy experimental control decks you find on ladder, this would be the list that I would recommend using. Okay, so again, my name is Control Guys. I stream Mondays to Saturdays at 1 PM PST. I hope you guys enjoyed this video where I talk a little bit about my top 5 decks from Un'Goro. I'll be experimenting a lot with a ton of different decks throughout the next week, as I am trying to create my own tier list and give everyone my thoughts on the Wild meta. That, along with other daily gameplay videos, will be hosted on my YouTube channel. So if you enjoy content like this and are looking forward to more, feel free to subscribe to me and check out some of my other videos. If you want to come and hang out with me while I'm live streaming and see some of the content live, interact with me through Twitch chat, feel free to come and drop through my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/controltheboard. Link will be in the description. Image links to all of the decks shown in this video will be in the description of the video. Thanks for checking the video out, guys, and I hope to see you all on Wild Ladder.